Did you know approximately 74% of people approaching retirement are missing critical information that could impact their plans for the future? I've personally analyzed hundreds of retirement plans over the years. And through the course of this work, I've come to the conclusion of a pattern that shocks me. So many times, I find that people continue on working even though they have enough money to retire comfortably. In today's video, I'm going to share the tale of two retirees. One, who continued working excess years despite being able to financially retire, and the other who had the confidence to step away. We're going to explore how these decisions differ and how they impacted not just their financial health, but their physical health, their relationships, and their quality of life over a 10-year period. The difference in outcome here might shock you, or it might actually sound familiar. But before we get into that, I want to take a minute to ask, if you find these videos helpful, please like and subscribe to our page. Have you ever wondered why so many people continue working even after they've reached their version of financial freedom? Let me introduce you to somebody named Michael. 62 years old, he's accumulated over $5 million across various investment accounts and has found that he has more than enough to retire securely. He's paid off his mortgage, he has no large outstanding debts, and by all financial measures in life, he's good to go. Yet despite all of this, Michael continues working 50 to 60-hour weeks, putting in a tremendous amount of time at his company. I've worked with several clients like Michael over the years, where someone like him accumulates wealth over time, understands that they have more than enough money to retire, in addition to being able to pursue their philanthropic and travel goals, and still continues to push themselves daily anyway. Despite all that, and understanding that they could make the leap to retirement, an excuse always comes up. For some reason or another, there's always something to postpone that day, whether it be volatility in the markets, working one more year, or just not being able to mentally comprehend that they can take that chance. Also, typically we see that one more year syndrome ends up turning into 3, 4, or 5 additional years, regardless of the fact that, again, the client understands that they have enough money. I believe what's going on here goes far beyond dollars and cents. And unfortunately, many times pre-retirees face psychological barriers that create unnecessary fear. 3 common mental roadblocks we see are identity loss, purpose anxiety, and financial insecurity. Let's take a look at another rather shocking statistic. According to a recent survey by the Employee Benefit Research Institute, 54% of those surveyed said that they would expect to work past the age of 65 or not retire at all. When asked why, the majority of respondents surveyed said that they felt financial insecurity. However, when each of their financial situations were examined more closely, it was found more often than not that they actually had more than enough money to retire. In Michael's instance, his title of vice president that he had earned over the course of 30 years became very tightly intertwined with his self-worth. This identity fusion can often make that separation feel like an amputation rather than a transition to a happy time in life. Introducing himself without his prestigious title makes him feel financial anxiety in social settings. That, coupled with volatile economic situations such as rising inflation or crazy ups and downs of the market, can really do a number on one's confidence when it comes to retirement, despite having a solid financial foundation. In Michael's situation, every dip in the market causes him to think that he needs to work just a bit longer. Despite having a sound plan in place and understanding that that plan is made to withstand the ups and downs of the markets and the economy, Michael still feels insecure about making the leap to retirement. What pre-retirees in Michael's situation often fail to calculate are the non-financial impacts that this decision-making could have on you over time. Health issues, such as elevated blood pressure or stress-related conditions, missing out on commitments due to feeling that you have to be tied down to your desk at all times, or even missing out on the most important things like spending time with your family or friends. These are all instances that we see commonly when we work with clients. The financial security that one might feel like they're building by delaying retirement could come with substantial costs in the way of health, family and friends, and self-well-being. This raises an important question. At what point does the pursuit of additional financial well-being become more harmful than helpful? For Michael and others like him, this financial independence that they have worked so hard to achieve over time ultimately becomes meaningless if you don't have the time to spend it. The assets across various investment accounts over time that Michael had saved for might continue to grow, yet our most precious resource, which is time, continues to diminish. Now, let's shift gears to look at a situation which, although having many similarities, has many important differences as well. Meet Sarah, a 60-year-old marketing executive, which has worked her whole life to build up a savings and has accumulated over $2.5 million. But, unlike Michael, although Sarah has to deal with similar feelings as far as having anxiety about financial freedom, increased healthcare expenses, and market volatility, decided to make the leap to retirement. During those first 6 months of retirement, Sarah repeatedly questioned herself. Anytime a hiccup or a correction occurred in the markets, Sarah questioned whether or not she had made the right choice. What made a major impact in the decision that Sarah made was the approach that she used. Rather than making a clean break from the workplace and retiring altogether at once, she was able to negotiate what we would know as a phased retirement with her employer, downshifting from 5 to 3 days per week. That gradual step down allowed Sarah psychological breathing room. So while she was able to maintain her connections professionally and personally through the workplace, she was also able to develop new hobbies and interests outside of work. The arrangement gave her ample time to understand that the transition needed to be made from glorifying her personal achievements in work to understanding what was actually important in her life outside of the workplace. In addition to that, Sarah and her team of professionals, which included her financial advisor, her attorney, and her accountant, put together a plan which was equally as methodical. Step 1 was creating what we would call the bucket approach and developing 3 separate buckets. This step is not necessary for all pre-retirees, but we have seen some great successes over time. The first bucket contained cash reserves, and short-term fixed income instruments, which allowed Sarah to have spending and wiggle room for the first 3 to 5 years out of retirement. This allowed her to put market volatility out of her mind. The second bucket was based more on intermediate-term goals, things like travel, hobbies, and gifting money to her grandchildren. The third bucket was geared more towards the long term and emergencies. This money was placed in a growth-oriented portfolio, which allowed Sarah to endure a little volatility, understanding that she had a longer time horizon, in addition to combating inflation. What actually surprised Sarah the most about making the change to retirement had nothing to do about the financial situation, but more to do with the change in her physical situation. Within 18 months of leaving her high-pressure job, Sarah felt remarkably better overall. Her sleep quality improved, her cortisol levels decreased, and her overall sense of well-being felt wonderful. These changes represented measurable health benefits that no amount of wealth could ever help you achieve. Retirement also allowed Sarah to strengthen her relationship with family and friends, which had become a bit strained due to her job. Contrary to fears of feeling a lack of purpose, Sarah was able to pivot pretty quickly and take on new challenges that made her feel great. She began offering her marketing expertise on a pro bono basis for nonprofit organizations, often aligning herself with places that shared the same values as opposed to corporate goals. When comparing the outcomes over the course of a decade following both Sarah's decision versus Michael's decision, the results are actually illuminating. The most successful retirees I've worked with over the years have multiple key factors in common. The first being they've created multiple streams of income in retirement far beyond just the traditional pre-tax retirement account. This can include things like Roth accounts, non-retirement oriented accounts, or even pensions. The second thing they do is remain level-headed. They have a plan which they've developed over the course of time with their trusted professionals, and this allows them to eliminate emotional decision-making when it comes to times of uncertainty like market volatility. The third thing they have in common is that their definition of wealth goes far beyond money. And this includes things like health, family, and friendships, in addition to personal self-fulfillment. The fourth thing they have in common is that they have a very clear vision for what post-work life looks like. In Sarah's situation, making the pivot to working for a nonprofit. Here's what I feel like many financial advisors are missing when addressing the retirement situation. That 74% confidence statistic that we spoke about earlier fails to take into the account real things that are meaningful to you in life. Again, like your family, your friends, your health, and things that bring you joy. At some point, you might ask yourself, which of these paths align with you? Are you working because you like to do it? Or are you working because you have a fear of retiring? In my opinion, the true meaning of enough has more to do with enough time to enjoy what you've built, as opposed to the number in your investment accounts. The freedom to strengthen relationships, better your health, and pursue long-term goals that you've always wanted to do but you've put off because of work can bring extreme satisfaction. If you're feeling any type of anxiety about your retirement plan, check out our next video here.